It's already working. Perfection. Nice. Okay, perfect. Welcome back to myself, because nobody's joined yet, obviously, because I don't tell anyone, and I also just hop on here. Anyways, hello, and welcome to the 6th reading. I mean, this is crazy. When did that happen? Of Charles Darwin, The Origin of Species. I can see that this writing thing didn't exactly work out, but I'm gonna correct it till the next time. That only counts for TikTok. Anyways, we are in chapter 2, page 50, and we are actually right now gonna go into the next chunk of this chapter, where we're going to be talking about wide-ranging, much diffused, and common species very most. That is like the chapter subtitle. Not the chapter chunk subtitle. Makes sense. Right. Okay, so guided by theoretical considerations, I thought that some interesting results might be obtained in regard to the nature and relations of the species which vary most by tabulating all the varieties in several well-worked floras. At first this seemed a simple task, but Mr. H.C. Watson, I had this problem last time too, Matt, right? To whom I am much indebted for valuable advice and assistance on this subject, soon convinced me that there were many difficulties, as did subsequently Dr. Hooker. Oh well, who cares? Even in stronger terms. I shall reserve for a future work the discussion of these difficulties and the tables of the proportional numbers of the varying species. Dr. Hooker permits me to add that after having carefully read my manuscript and examined the tables, he thinks that the following statements are fairly well established. The whole subject, however, treated as it necessarily here is with much brevity, is rather perplexing, and allusions cannot be avoided to the struggle for existence, divergence of character, and other questions hereafter to be discussed. Alphonse de Candolle, we discussed him last time, you remember him, and others have shown that plants which have very wide ranges generally present varieties, and this might have been expected as they are exposed to diverse physical conditions and as they come into competition, which, as we shall hereafter see, is a far more important circumstance, with different sets of organic beings. Oh, they're in competition with different sets of organic beings. That's what, yeah. Okay. But my tables further show that in any limited... Are we going to see any tables? No. Okay. But my tables further show that in any limited country... But my tables further show that in any limited country, the species which are the most common, that is, abound most in individuals, and the species which are most widely diffused within their own country, and this is brackets, and this is a different consideration from wide range, and to a certain extent for commonness, oftenest, I didn't even know that you could do oftenest. Like even oftener. I love that. Wait, sorry. What? I kid you not. This sentence is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5 lines long. Who edited this? No, it's fine. Let's start again. But my tables further show that in any limited country, the species which are the most common, that is, abound to most in individuals, and the species which are most widely diffused within their own country, and this is a different consideration from wide range as to a certain extent from commonness, and to a certain extent from commonness, oftenest give rise to varieties sufficiently well marked to have been recorded in botanical works. Hence, it is the most flourishing, or as they may be called, the dominant species, those which range widely, are the most diffused in their own country and are the most numerous in individuals, which oftenest produce well marked varieties, or, as I consider them, incipient species. And this perhaps might have been anticipated, for as varieties, in order to become in any degree permanent, necessarily have to struggle with the other inhabitants of the country. The species which are already dominant will be at most likely to yield offspring, the most likely to yield offspring, which, though in some slight degree modified, still inherit those advantages that enabled their parents to become dominant over their competitors. In these remarks on predominance, it should be understood that reference is made only to the forms which come into competition with each other, and more specifically to the members of the same genus or class, having nearly similar habits of life. With respect to the number of individuals or commonness of species, the comparison of course relates only to the members of the same group. One of the higher plants may be said to be dominant if it be more numerous in individuals and more widely diffused than the other plants of the same country, which live under nearly the same conditions. A plant of this kind is not the less dominant because some conferva, I don't know the word, conferva inhabiting the water, or some parasitic fungus is infinitely more numerous in individuals and more widely diffused. Okay. I don't know, I still don't know what conferva means, but what we know now, what we know now is that he means that if we have different plants, if we have a dominant plant, it's not going to be compared to a fungus in the water as to say that the fungus is more dominant, so the other one, you know. Ooh, thank you. That is okay. That's very helpful. Thank you very much. Well, for anyone who isn't on YouTube and isn't seeing that, it's a thread-like green algae. That's cool. Yeah. Where was I? Yes, but if the conferva or parasitic fungus exceeds its allies in the above respects, it will then be dominant within its own class. Makes sense. But this was the shortest chapter chunk he's ever written, or until now. Okay, let's keep going. Species of the larger genera in each country vary more frequently than the species of the smaller genera. Are we trying to make... I mean, it is obvious to me, and it is obvious to you, because, you know, we know what we know today, but at the same time, he might not have known, and he's not trying to make obvious points. Okay, so species of the larger genera in each country vary more frequently than the species of the smaller genera. If the plants inhabiting a country, as described in any flora, be divided into two equal masses, all those in the larger genera, i.e. those including many species, being placed on one side, and all those in the smaller genera, or on the other side, the former will be found to include a somewhat larger number of the very common and much diffused or dominant species. This might have been anticipated, for a mere fact of many species of the same genus inhabiting any country shows that there is something in the organic or inorganic conditions of that country favorable to the genus, and consequently, we might have expected to have found in the larger genera or those. Am I drunk or? I can't be drunk, by the way. Except if I had a condition. I mean, I'm sorry. I cannot be. I'm not drunk. Okay. This might have been anticipated, for the mere fact of many species of the same genus inhabiting any country shows that there is something in the organic or inorganic conditions of that country favorable to the genus, and consequently, we might have expected to have found in the larger genera, or those including many species, a larger proportional number of dominant species. But so many causes tend to obscure this result that I am surprised that my tables show even a small majority on the side of the larger genera. I am surprised that we are not seeing any tables. Why are you talking about tables and not showing me? Show me the tables! Okay. A larger genera, blah, larger proportional number, dominant species. Yes, but so many causes tend to obscure this result that I am surprised that my tables show even a small majority of the side on the side of the larger genera. I will here allude to only two causes of obscurity. Freshwater and salt-loving plants generally have very wide ranges and are much diffused, but it seems to be connected with the nature of the stations inhabited by them, and that little or no relation to the size of the genera to which the species belong. Again, plants low in the scale of organization are generally much more widely diffused than plants higher in the scale, and here again there is no close relation to the size of the genera. The cause of lowly organized plants ranging widely will be discussed in our chapter on geographical distribution. From looking at species as only strongly marked and well-defined varieties, I was led to anticipate that the species of the larger genera in each country would oftener, I love this word. I love the word oftener. The fuck kind of word is that? Let's be honest. Like, I have never used the word oftener, and I also think this is not socially acceptable right now, okay? I don't know. Okay. What? Okay. I was led to anticipate that the species of the larger genera in each country would oftener present varieties than the species of the smaller genera, for wherever many closely related species, i.e. species of the same genus, have been formed, many varieties or incipient species ought, as a general rule, to be now forming. Where many large trees grow, we expect to find saplings. I think that was the easiest sentence we have found in this book. Just so you know. The one and easiest one. Okay. We expect to find saplings. Where many species of a genus have been formed through variation, circumstances have been favorable for variation, and hence we might expect that the circumstances would generally still be favorable to variation. On the other hand, if we look at each species as a special act of creation, there is no apparent reason why more varieties should occur in a group having many species than in one having few. To test the truth of this anticipation, I have arranged the plants of 12 countries and the coleopterous insects of 2 districts into 2 nearly equal masses. The species of the larger genera on one side and those of the smaller genera on the other side, and it has invariably proved to be the case that larger proportion of the species on the side of the larger genera presented varieties that a larger proportion of the species on the side of the larger genera presented varieties than on the side of the smaller genera. Moreover, the species of the larger genera. Oh, I cannot read today. I'm really, oh my god. It's fine. Moreover, the species of the larger genera, which present any varieties, invariably present a larger average number of varieties than do the species of the small genera. Both these results follow when another division is made and when all the least genera with from only 1 to 4 species are altogether excluded from the table. These facts are of plain signification of the view that species are only strongly marked and permanent varieties, for whenever many species of the same genus have been formed, or where, if we have used the expression, the manufactory of species has been active, we ought generally to find the manufactory still in action, more especially as we have every reason to believe the process of manufacturing new species to be a slow one. And this certainly holds true if varieties be looked at as incipient species. For my tables, I am. Show me the tables. Why don't you show me the tables? There is 0 tables in here. Is there? Is there a table in the back? No, of course not. This leads me to believe that he might have included some tables and as well as pictures, because you remember the last times I was freaking out about, or I was not freaking out, I was mentioning that I missed pictures. I think that pictures would have helped a lot. If somebody had added, if Darwin or the editors had decided to add like the pictures of the different pigeons or the pictures of the different plants that he's describing, then that would have made things a lot easier. But they didn't. And now they're talking about tables, 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 and they're not showing us the tables. And I don't like it. Do you know this? This I don't like it. I got this from Chris Evans. He has a niece or a nephew, I don't know, which is a super young child, and they said, and he said in an interview that his niece or nephew says all the time that I don't like it, I don't, and I love that. I've been using that, but it's not. It, yeah. Yes. And this certainly holds true if varieties can be looked at as incipient species, for my tables clearly show they do not, as a general rule, that whenever many species of a genus have been formed, the species of that genus present a number of varieties that is of incipient species beyond the average. It is not that all large genera are now varying much and are thus increasing in the number of their species, or that no small genera are now varying and increasing, for if this had been so, it would have been fatal to my theory. Is inasmuch one word? He's writing inasmuch, but in one word. I've never heard that before. I've never read that before. Inasmuch as geology plainly tells us that the small genera have, in the lapse of time, often increased greatly in size, and that large genera have often come to their maxima, declined, and disappeared. Makes sense. All that we want to show is that all that we want to show. Who's we, by the way? Who is we? All that we want to show is that there are many species of a genus that all that we want to show is that where many species of a genus have been formed, on an average many are still forming, and this certainly holds good. Yes, one word. I didn't know that. Inasmuch. I feel very fancy now. I think that I'm gonna be using it when I wanna be fancy. Inasmuch. I think I need to use it in writing because as a word, it's fine, you know, in as much, okay, in as or as three words, I mean, in three words, it's fine, no big deal, but as one word, it's funny. I feel it's funny. Many of the species included within the large, this is the next chapter chunk thingy. We are here, and this is the next chapter chunk thingy, and I'm gonna read you now what we're gonna learn in here. Many of the species included within the larger genera resemble varieties in being very closely but unequally related to each other and in having restricted ranges. Okay. Yeah. There are other relations between the species of larger genera and their recorded varieties which deserve notice. We have seen that there is no infallible criterion by which to distinguish species and well-marked varieties, and when intermediate links have not been found between doubtful forms, naturalists are compelled to come to the determination by the amount of difference between them, judging by analogy whether or not the amount suffices to raise one or both to the rank of species. Hence, the amount of difference is one very important criterion in settling whether two forms should be ranked as species or varieties. Now, Fries has remarked in regard to plants and Westwood in regard to insects that in large genera the amount of difference between the species is often exceedingly small. I have endeavored to test this I have endeavored to test this numerically by averages, and as far as my imperfect results go, they confirm the view. I have also consulted some sagacious and experienced observers, and after deliberation, they concur with this view. In this respect, therefore, the species of the larger genera resemble varieties more than do the species of smaller genera. So, species of the larger genera resemble varieties more than do the species of the smaller genera. Okay. Or the case may be put in another way, and it may be said that in the larger genera in which the number of varieties or incipient species greater than the average are now manufacturing, many of the species already manufactured still to a certain extent resemble varieties, for they differ from each other by a less than the usual amount of difference. What is the usual amount of difference and how do we define it? Especially, how do we define it in a time where we only use phenotypes? That's actually, I would like to know that. I would like to know how they in that time frame decided whether something is a variety or like a simple I mean, they didn't know about mutations, but you know, if something was a simple like whoopsie, this chicken has one feather that is differently colored, and if they would decide, okay, well, we saw now two chickens with the same different colored feather on the head or whatever, and then they decided then that this is enough to describe one variety, or whether they had to have like some more criteria to I would hmm, I would like to go back to the basics, please. Okay. Yes. Moreover, the species of the larger genera are related to each other in the same manner as the varieties of any other species are related to each other. No naturalist pretends that all the species of a genus are equally distinct from each other. They may generally be divided into subgenera or sections or lesser groups. As Fries has well remarked, little groups of species are generally clustered like satellites around other species. And that are varieties but groups and what are varieties but groups of forms unequally related to each other and clusters round certain and clustered around certain forms, that is, around their parent species. Undoubtedly, there is one most important point of difference between varieties and species, namely that the amount of difference between varieties when compared with each other or with their parent species is much less than that between the species of the same genus. But when we come to discuss the principle, as I call it, of divergence of character, we shall see how this may be explained and how the lesser differences between varieties tend to increase into the greater differences between species. There is one other point which is worth notice. Varieties generally have much restricted ranges. This statement is indeed scarcely more than a truism, for if a variety were found to have a wider range than that of its supposed parent species, their denominations would be reversed. But there is reason to believe that the species which are very closely allied to other species and insofar resemble varieties often have much restricted ranges. For example, Mr. H.C. Watson has marked for me in the well-shifted London Catalogue of Plants, 4th edition, 63 plants which are therein ranked as species, but which he considers as so closely allied to other species as to be of doubtful value. These 63 reputed species range from an average of over 6.9 of the provinces into which Mr. Watson has divided Great Britain. Now, in this same catalogue, 53 acknowledged varieties are recorded, and these range over 7.7 provinces, whereas the species to which these varieties belong to range over 14.3 provinces. How many provinces does Great Britain have? Has divided. We don't know how many provinces Great Britain has. Okay, so that the acknowledged varieties have very nearly the same restricted average range as they have closely allied forms, marked for me by Mr. Watson as doubtful species, but which are almost universally ranked by British botanists as good and true species. Now, let me be not, I don't know what it's not exactly devil's advocate, but how about we believe the many botanists instead of one person? And they are, well, you say it doesn't have provinces, it has counties. Yeah, I know. It says here that Mr. Watson has divided Great Britain into I don't know how many provinces, and that 6.9 of these provinces were like the range of, he divided it into provinces to decide how widely spread one species was. But it would be interesting to see, okay, he had like 15, and this one species had varieties that belonged to a range over 14.6 provinces, 14.3 it says here, 14.3 instead of just saying 14.3. 14.3 of what? Of how many? Like, tell us what you want to tell us. Yes. Summary. Oh my god, summary of the second chapter. Woo! We're done with the second chapter. Okay, summary first. Summary. I don't think that I'm going to read this third chapter tonight. The reason why I'm not going to read it tonight is because I think I have to go to the basement and get my fancy work pants, because I have to go to a work event tomorrow and the day after, and I think that they're downstairs. Ugh, I don't know where. What time is it? Summary. Finally, varieties cannot be distinguished from species, except first by the discovery of intermediate linking forms, and secondly by a certain indefinite amount of differences between them. Indefinite. It's indefinite. So why do we believe Watson that much? Why do we decide that, okay, well, he's going to be worth half a page of this super short book, and we're going to talk about how many the species he sees range in one specific, like, why are we doing this if it's indefinite? Anyways, secondly, by a certain indefinite amount of differences between them, for two forms, if differing very little, are generally ranked as varieties, notwithstanding that they cannot be closely connected. But the amount of difference considered necessary to give to any two forms the rank of species cannot be defined. In genera, having more than the average number of species in any country, the species of these genera have more than the average number of varieties. In large genera, the species are apt to be closely but unequally allied together, forming little clusters around other species. Species very closely allied to other species apparently have restricted ranges. In all these respects, the species of large genera, if I say species one more time, I will freak out. No, it's gonna be fine. In all these respects, the species of larger genera present a strong analogy with varieties, and we can clearly understand these analogies if species once existed as varieties and thus originated, whereas these analogies are utterly inexplicable if species are independent creations. We have also seen that it is the most flourishing or dominant species of the larger genera within each class which on an average yield the greatest number of varieties, and varieties, as we shall hereafter see, tend to become converted into new and distinct species. Thus the larger genera tend to become larger, and throughout nature the forms of life which are now dominant tend to become still more dominant by leaving many modified and dominant descendants. But by steps hereafter to be explained, the larger genera also tend to break up into smaller genera, and thus the forms of life throughout the universe become divided into groups subordinate to groups. Is it just me, or was it a boring chapter? The next chapter, like the title of the next chapter already looks very interesting because it says struggle of existence. I mean, that could be like story of my life. No. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Okay, I'm just gonna read you the first, like, this thingy that lists all the titles of the chunks that we're gonna read, but we're gonna read it next time. We can chat a bit if you like, but I'm gonna have to go downstairs and I'm not gonna start the new chapter. But the chapter number 3 is gonna be the struggle for existence. Its bearing on natural selection, the term used in a wide sense, geometrical ratio of increase, rapid increase of naturalized animals and plants, nature of the checks to increase, competition universal, effects of climate, protection from the number of individuals, complex relations of all animals and plants throughout nature, struggle for life most severe between individuals and varieties of the same species, often severe between species of the same genus, and the relation of organism to organism, the most important of all relations. This is going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. This turned out to be a pretty short live this time, but it's fine. I'm very happy that I did it. I was looking forward to reading with you. We read only 8 pages. It's fine. we're gonna survive, and we're gonna keep reading next time. And I'm very happy that you were here. I'm very happy to have read with you, and we'll see each other next time, I guess. I don't know yet when. This week is gonna be crazy for me. That's why I decided to do it today, because tomorrow and the day after I'm gonna be at um yeah, I don't know what to call it. It's a work thing, and in the evenings, I think tomorrow and the day after I don't have something in the evenings, but after that it's gonna be very full, stressful. Ah, on Wednesday I have already 3 commitments after work. Oh, no, it's gonna be fine. I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be fine. I really thought I was weird when my parents told me not to eat sugar because it makes you hyper, but it never made me so that sure. Yes, yes, that was a very yeah. I just, to set the scene. I was an hour early to meeting my friends, their family, and I was an hour early. So I was. They were not home because I could have just checked when we were actually gonna meet and not just go there. So they were not home, and I was like, okay, well, I'm sitting here now. They're already rushing to get back. They came like 10 minutes later, but I, in the meantime, could make a TikTok. And then I decided to record it. And then I was like with them all day. And then I came back and everything was like, okay. I was like at 300 views on TikTok. It was at like 300 views. And at some point, everybody freaked out. Overnight, I don't know. And today I was like not online that much in the morning. And everybody freaked out about this TikTok. Everybody was like, oh my God, okay, but what does sugar have to do with ADHD? And that is a lie, and it is not a lie, and it is a lie, and I don't know if it's a lie, and who cares, and whatever. And I was like, okay, well, how about we chill for a second? And then I answered a few of the comments. Usually I just answer every single comment because I feel like this is a discussion that keeps, like, but now I just answered a few via video because that was the easiest way to address them and not to be way too expansive in my answers. Yeah, and then I decided to answer a few of them, and this has also been like, somebody told me that I'm not that I'm arrogant. And I mean, I can seem arrogant to people, and I can not to others, and I don't know, but somebody told me that I'm arrogant, and I was like, well, that's not how I meant it, but it's fine. Yeah, well, yeah, but yeah, it was fun to see all these like people actually, like, this confirmation bias that is also the basis of this problem, that we think that people or children who eat sugar are gonna freak out, that and that, so for other people who don't know what I mean, there's this myth that when children eat sugar, the parents, no, that's not the myth part. So when children eat sugar, that they're gonna freak out. And that is a myth, because actually the studies have shown that it is a confirmation bias from parents. Parents have heard this myth so often that they just believe it, and that they just decided, okay, well, all these children that are, the second you get sugar, you're gonna freak out on me, and then you just decide that somebody else, that a child, is gonna freak out on you. And that's what's happening. And then a lot of parents were like, well, take my kids for a day and see, and stuff like that, which I think is funny because I'm not here to to discredit your experience. It's just that science already did. I'm sorry. Like, I don't care if your children get hyper or not. I'm just saying that it is not true, and if they do, it's just because you tell them that you're going to be hyper. And this is also a way of, like, this self-fulfilling prophecy is also a thing. If you tell a child that it is very cool and very collected or whatever, it's gonna at some point believe you. And if you tell them that, oh my god, you're being hyper right now, it's gonna be hyper. And also, um, usually we eat sugar when we are like in a very yay have as children. Now I eat sugar on a daily basis every time whenever I pass by sugar because I have no self-control. But as a child, where my mother had still the power of over me and over my intake, she could just decide that, okay, well, I'm not gonna give you sugar, but now you can have some. And then I was super happy because she gave me some. And I don't know if I freaked out. I don't remember anything of the sort because my mother didn't believe in. Maybe she didn't believe in it, or she didn't say so, or I didn't catch it. I don't know. But anyways, I never lived with that. With that, oh my god, if you eat sugar, then you're gonna freak out. But also, I have ADHD, which means that I might have forgotten. I might just not have remembered that she was freaking out about my sugar intake. I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot happening on TikTok all the time, all day long today, which has been interesting, but also slightly. Oh my god, yes! This is so good. Somebody said that what was the other one? That if you go out with wet hair, somebody said that, and I, duh, yes, but this having cramps, swimming after eating, that wasn't allowed. That was so funny. That's so funny. Yes, that's true. Swimming after eating, like some people had like, oh my god, like you're gonna have to stay outside the water for 2 hours after you ate because whatever. And as children, we hated that. We didn't like that at all. I mean, obviously, but it's fine. Yeah. Anyways, let's go to the basement to get my clothes for tomorrow. I hope they're not too wrinkly. I have zero interest. I'm just gonna wear something else if they are. I think that I don't remember where I put them. Usually I put them on hangers, so that would be fine, but you know. Anyways, it was very nice to be here today. Thank you so much for joining. And we'll see each other hopefully soon. Yeah. Oh yes, the cracking knuckles thing as well. Don't crack your knuckles. You're gonna or but that I don't think that my parents ever believed that if if you watch TV too much, your eyes are gonna turn squares to squares or something like that. That was also funny. And that if you, so I did something with my eyes, like something like that, and they were saying that this would stick, and that way I wouldn't be able to unstick my eyes if I do that. But I don't think that they actually believe that. They just wanted for me to not do it, you know. Yeah. Anyways, have a good night. Have a nice week. Have a lot of fun next week, whatever you may do. And we'll see each other at some point, but I don't know when yet. Bye-bye. Wait, how do I close this? Bye!